eat when you're sad, eat when you're happy, eat when you're hungry, eat when you're thirsty.
And the first thing that one of my old school friends said was, God, haven't you got fat?
Welcome to Lose to Win, the podcast with myself, Jack, Josh, and a very special guest this week. A last-minute call-up for injured Ben is our good friend from the Greens, Alex Jones. How's things, mate? How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. Thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for filling the spot, mate. It's much appreciated. It's always good to have somebody in between me and Josh arguing. It helps it along a little bit. How are you, Josh?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I say this every week, but I've had another good week. You know, life is swell. Fortunate man. So things are going well. And we'll get to the roundup bit in a minute. But I've had a very good, in terms of weight loss this week. I've actually been very good. I've really hit the ground running for the season. It's really good. I'm 1.5 kilos off or something. So good start to the season, and it's shaping up to be. I wasn't meant to be here this coming Friday, but we'll see. I might be able to make it. So. The pressure of the scales is going to mount as I get closer to the day.
Definitely.
So we'll come back to that anyway. But
we've had a really good response from Andrew's podcast. It's up there with one of the most listened to. Obviously, that coincides with Man with Fat very kindly sharing the information and the link within their kind of newsletter email out to everybody, and me ramming it down people's throats on Facebook. But it makes such a difference. And I don't know about you, but I've keep kind of going back to little bits of the conversation we had with Andrew. It's probably been for me the most poignant one we've had, just around the motivational thing. And I don't think he realizes, or I kind of realized at the time, but how much of an impact it's had on kind of things that I'm thinking about and how I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that just frustrates me a little bit, that there's inspiration all around me at the club and inspiration all around me. All you need to do is look at like inspirational weight losses on Google if you wanted to, but there's always something that makes that penny drop. And I think the conversation with him and listening to how he feels, how he's doing it, how he's done the little things that he's done, it seems to have made a bit of a difference for me, or quite a big difference. So I'm hoping that shows this week. I'm sure it will. But I don't know. I don't know if everybody else listening feels that level of inspiration from it, but I certainly do.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you, did you do that ice water in the end?
I haven't done it every morning, but I did it the next morning.
Okay.
And I've had it a couple of mornings in it. My God, I hate water. I'm so bad with water. It blows my mind, because I think if I put like a touch of squash in it, I'd be able to do it. But I'm just trying to not do that at all. I don't mind drinking squash throughout the day, like the low sugar stuff. But for that very first one, I've reduced it down to a pint of water. But I don't know how you can do a litre every morning. I think it would make me sick.
Well, we'll see. As we got from last week, he's obviously a very disciplined and determined man, and inspirational, as you say. I don't know if I've like taken anything away, like getting my Varg yogurts and stuff like specifically, but I do believe that having spoken to him last week has probably subconsciously helped me, and will probably hopefully continue to help me. That aligned with my own motivation with a new season. So
absolutely
good to start.
Can you do us a little deep dive into season 8, week 1 for us from
indeed,
a Man v Fat perspective?
An interesting one, because now we've got 8 teams in the league, so starting a full new season. I think obviously, even though it wasn't a full mix-up of teams, I think everyone, along with obviously it being the start of a season, but also just teams losing a player or two, I think everyone, I don't know about you, but I know in you in particular, Jack, because you actually have got a new team, but it almost feels like new teams again. So
it certainly does.
It's kind of refreshed. It's a strange one. So we've had a really good start anyway. So Steve's roundup this week kind of starts with a curious inclusion of the grasshopper. I don't know why he mentioned it. Just a humble insect that can jump 20 times its own body length for standing start. Now, apparently that's the equivalent of jumping a length of a basketball court for us mere humans. So, but I didn't understand where he was going until it's not quite a David Attenborough kind of thing, although Planet Earth 3 has just started, by the way. So go and watch that. Yeah. It's more the fact that the league is back with a gigantic leap of its own, really. So season 8, week 1, as it is, we lost 20 kilos to start as a league. Very, very good start, all things considered, especially off the back of a friendly, and some people need to maybe get back to a starting weight. So there's some of that, and the inclusion of new teams where some of them are only doing a baseline weight, so they aren't officially losing anything. So a very good week. The action on the pitch was kind of closely fought as well. So including 2 drawn games, and the honours and the scales were evenly distributed. So suggesting that season 8 is shaping up to be pretty classic, and I hope people will be happy with their teams as they gel.
Definitely.
The results in general. So Yellows lost 14-6 to the Blues. We had your Purples, Jack, lose to us Blacks 7-6. Very tight one.
Very tight
indeed.
2-all,
yeah. It was 2-all on the pitch as well. I thought it was a really good game as well.
It was. Yeah, I'm really happy with the new team. Just quickly on that, you hit the nail on the head with some new guys that couldn't make the friendly week. So this week was their first weigh-in. So there was an opportunity to get more than we did, but it's just how it happens. I explained to them that it'll only be that week that will ever happen to us, because we lost out on people not weighing in, basically. But it's how the cookie crumbles, pardon the cliche, but we move on and we go again.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Oranges won 7-6, so another new team against Whites, who unfortunately obviously had a player missing or 2, I believe, to start the season. The Reds won 11-8 against the Greens to start. So unlucky there, Alex. I know you're on the Greens to start, but it was a close one. I can't remember what the pitch was. The pitch was maybe not quite as close.
It was 4-2.
Oh, right, to the Reds, was it? Yeah. So quite close in overall in general. So us as the Blacks were the biggest losers in terms of weight loss of the week, and that led to some of your loss, unfortunately, Jack. And the Oranges obviously tasting victory first time against the Whites. So as all the newcomers are now established a baseline weight, we can expect, as you were saying, even better performances on the scales from the new teams in the following weeks, because now they'll be able to knock off some weight officially coming into this Friday. Elsewhere, the Blues enjoyed the only milestone of the night, as well as using their 2-goal boost from the friendly week incentive scheme to extend their margin of victory. So that 14-6 is obviously inclusive of that and a milestone. There we go. So over the Yellows. Reds overcame the Greens, as we mentioned, in a game marked by spectacular on-pitch goals and impressively consistent weight loss on both teams. I do want to give a shout out to my good friend and new to the league mate, John, who was on the Oranges.
What a goal.
Did you see the goal?
I was playing against him, mate.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was unbelievable. For the context for anyone listening, it was like a flying, like chest height instep volley from the edge
in
of
off
the
the
area.
post as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
just
in
pinged.
off the post. It was pretty incredible. So, and we did see a classic volley at the end of last season. We've already seen one to start this one. So
very good start. High standard set.
It's got to repeat that every week now going forward. So as it's the first week, there are no hat tricks. They won't start until week 3. But Victor Aquino, I believe that's how you pronounce your name. I'm sorry, Victor, if I get it wrong, is this week's only milestone man. So continuing last season's steady progress to join the 5% club. So well done, Victor.
Amazing. Do you know what's amazing about that as well? Is you and I were in the weigh-in room at the time, and he needed to take his t-shirt off, and he wasn't going to, and Steve encouraged him to. Obviously, Steve had no idea that was going to make the difference for the percentage. But when I saw his name pop up on the Saturday morning that he was the one that hit the percentage, just like it's just amazing how those things work, isn't it? You and I were just sat there kind of go on, mate, come on, do it. And there we go. He got his 5% from it.
I wonder if he knew that. I'm not sure he probably knew, and I'm not sure that might be a good way of doing it as well, like knowing roughly but not knowing precisely. So you're not chasing a very specific number. Maybe that's the way to go. Because I'm not sure he knew. Because as I say, we're trying to encourage him to take a shot off. Maybe I would have thought if he'd known he was that close, he wouldn't have needed the encouragement.
No, absolutely.
So maybe. Maybe I'm wrong. Last man standing saw a record 63 players weigh in. Obviously, the start of a new season for last man standing. No one went out, of course, but 26 of us, including the absentees, used the precious Grace Week. So now they have no more room for error if they want to progress to the scoring stage of the competition. So we had an extremely strong last man standing competition last year. So let's hope we can better that this year. It's a very strong team of the week to start with 6 different teams, each providing a single player to join the lineup, and encourages statistic for anyone hoping for a closely fought season, that is. So Geordie from the Blacks leads the team of the week for a stunning 3.4 kilo weight loss.
Phenomenal.
Just phenomenal. So here's the roll call after that. So we've got Geordie at the top with 3.4. Tom Marks with 3.2. Tom Davey again with 2.6, rolling on from another good season. Rav Nath with 2.5. George with 2.5. And Jets with 1.9. So, as I say, a good roundup of different teams. I was about to say, wait, Jets on the Blacks, but he's not anymore. He's captain of the Oranges. Yeah. So next week sees 2 of this week's winners, Reds and Oranges, go head to head. Reds won't be allowed to use their incentive scheme boost, which they didn't in week 1, which is bad news for us Blacks because we are their week 3 opposition and they have to use it the first 3 weeks.
How many did they have? Was it 2 or 3?
I think they got 3. So I think they got the most. So it's basically a bonus, isn't it? You know what I mean? A milestone against us next week. So while the Whites have a decision to make about theirs, so they've got a couple of weeks to use it. At 14 weeks, it's the longer league schedule than ever before. So there's plenty of time to chase down the early leaders, and even halfway through the season, there's going to be still loads of time and stake a claim for glory. So with all 4 games close on the pitch this week, it's clear that the path to victory is going to come on through the scales, and as it always does. So over to us all to make that happen.
Definitely.
So that's the roundup for Man v Fat Bournemouth this week.
Awesome.
Exciting week to come, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm thoroughly looking forward to it, and I think bedding in with a new team is been good so far. I've got a real good mix of lads that seem super determined, but also we all know it's not all about the football. We've got some lads that are pretty handy footballers that will certainly help build momentum.
I did notice that.
We've got
obviously playing against them.
Chap called Ian who played at the back, who was fantastic at his glass. I think his glasses got wiped off his face at one point with a big header.
I remember saying to him,
But he was brilliant. He was an absolute rock, and that makes all the difference. It's very similar to how lucky I was last season to have George at the back. George was fantastic for the Whites, and just that makes such a difference, having that confidence as somebody at the back that can play that position well and make sure that you're protected. It really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings us to Blacks just quickly, because a massive shout out to Geordie, not only for his massive weight loss, but the commitment he shows. We know his schedule's tough, so sometimes he can't make it.
Yeah.
But I know just from being in the chat and speaking to him personally how much it means for him to come down, even when he's had an absolute mega day of driving all around the country from early hours and a huge shift, to come down even last minute to get involved with the team and play and weigh in. And I'm not sure I'd personally be able to do it after such a long day all the time. So, and even though he is obviously sometimes here, sometimes not, when we have him here, I also notice a massive difference on the pitch in just how solid we are and how much of a game we can give the other team. So, massive shout out to you, Geordie, if you're listening. I'll say a credit to the team.
He's a good guy all round as well, isn't he?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, speaking of a credit to the team and the league, we have a guest with us. So, Alex,
Hello.
Usually this is the kind of stage. I know Jack likes to run into this, so I apologise. I'm stealing your thunder, Jack.
No, do it, mate.
We like to kind of get to know you a little bit better, and obviously we know you a little, but for the listeners to get to know you, and we usually run through a quick kind of icebreaker. So, if you could, mate, if you could give us, in terms of football, who your kind of team is, so who you support, kind of your favourite player, it could be past or present, all time from that team, and then if you have a favourite memory again from that team and run us through that is.
Yeah, of course. So the team that I follow is Southampton for my
Boo.
sins.
Hmm.
Yeah, which is a bit rough playing in the Man v Fat Bournemouth League. I kind of have to keep that quiet a little bit sometimes. I don't do a very good job of it. But yeah, I've followed them since I was about 6, I think, when I first started to really get into football. Just through sort of my family, I guess. My dad's a Southampton fan, all my uncles are. So just sort of fell in love with them that way. And the season ticket holder up there this season, with us being in the Championship, it was a bit cheaper. So yeah, decided that I would get a season ticket and enjoying it so far.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, it's good. I think if I had to give my favourite player, I'll do a past and present if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
I think my favourite player from the past has got to be Ricky Lambert. Took us from League One to the Premier League.
Yeah, good choice.
With some great finishes. Such a great sort of striker. Probably wouldn't make it in today's game. It's probably a bit too quick for him, but he could really finish his free kicks, penalties. He was awesome. So
is that where you get it from? Is it? You know, some of the stuff we see on a Thursday night.
Studying him. That's quite nice of you. Thank you. But I think my current favourite player would have to be Stuart Armstrong. He's just a bit of a magician when the ball's at his feet. He can beat anyone. It just looks so neat when he's running and score some good goals as well. So yeah, they would be sort of my favourite players.
Nice.
And I think in terms of my favourite memory, it's a tough one because I've got sort of different reasons for them. But I would say, obviously, getting promoted to the Premier League. I remember watching it on the TV. I think we beat Coventry 4-0 last game of the season to take us up. So that was pretty mega. But I also really liked being able to see us play in Europe. I was quite lucky to be able to go to the games.
Amazing.
Yeah. Imagine that. In Europe.
Oh no, I know. I say that like it's it's so far long ago. I just somehow, and this isn't me being, but I did forget. You know, I just kind of.
No, of course.
You know.
I watched us beat, I think it was Sparta Prague 3-0 in Europe, which was really cool. That was one of my favourite moments. So yeah, brilliant. That's a little bit about my love for Southampton, I guess.
Well, yeah, we'll forget the Southampton, but we'll gloss over it and pretend it was, you know, in a Bournemouth league, as you say.
You've had some players there, though, haven't you? If you think about, I know it goes on along the list is huge about how many players that have come through there, but also the ability of buying and selling, almost Brighton are almost copying that mould, if that makes sense. Ironically, only just down the road geographically, but I think there's a similarity there where they're able to find those gems and make the most out of them, as well as having a youth development as well. And I think you've done amazing to have both.
Yeah, we have been very, very blessed. Our recruitment for a long time was awesome, signing players like Sadio Mane, Dusan Tadic, Van Dijk. We had Alderweireld on loan.
Of course you did, yeah.
We had some really good players. There's always this photo that goes around on Facebook, a screenshot of our team, and it's players like Wanyama in the middle and Tadic, as I say, and Mane and Klein at right back, and players like that when they played for us, arguably might have sort of been in their prime, like say Klein. And yeah, it's a bit of a shame to see where we are now, but I guess you can't continuously ride that, sell off all your big players and go and try and sign those wonder kids. I just hope clubs like Brighton don't fall into that sort of hole as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a good point. I've always remembered. It's funny you say that because I just didn't. Again, it's all those players you mentioned. I just completely forgot about, and it's amazing how many of them have come through Southampton. Again, it's something I forgot about, to be fair. Maybe it's the blind spot I have for Southampton, but it's just,
it's a good point.
It's amazing. It's amazing, to be fair. And I would say, by the way, I don't know about you. I don't know what your thoughts on Hasenhüttl were, but he was like my favourite when he was there. I thought he was like, for your club anyway. Maybe it's me.
Yeah. So when he was our manager, I sort of said this man could take us to League Two, and I think I'd still love him. I loved his passion and energy that he had for us. There's a clip of him crying when we beat Liverpool 1-0.
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah. And
I couldn't stand it personally. I thought it was a bit much. Yeah. But again, I think that's similar to Josh's blind spot for him. I think it's my dislike of Saints. I'm trying to think at that point, I'm kind of like, really? And I know he got a lot of grief for it as well from outside of the club, definitely.
I think he did, yeah. But I think he was always sort of, I don't know whether it was our fan base or not, but referred to as the Alpine Klopp when he first came in. And he never got one over on Liverpool. And then, it was a little bit poetic, really. Danny Ings, I think it was the goal, who obviously boyhood Saints fan, went to Liverpool, didn't work out, came back to us, got the winner against a club that, have taken a lot of our star players. I don't begrudge them for that. They're 10 times the size we are. But I think it all just, for Saints fans, sort of fitted quite nicely for us. And so to see that was great. But towards the end, he did sort of just seem to run out of ideas and run out of that passion that we used to see, and just never really had a plan B. It was, we're just going to stick with this. And I think sacking him was unfortunately the right call.
Fair enough.
But it wasn't the mistake that we made was getting Nathan Jones in. I'd have taken anyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny you should say that. Maybe we'll come to this later when we discuss another team that may be looking at a new manager sometime soon. But that's one thing I do not want from clubs. So I do not like from clubs is they get rid of a manager and they have no plan, and then they just
panic.
Yeah, panic, and then they try to get someone from the lower leagues who's been doing well for us half a season or a season, and think they can just suddenly jump into the Prem. So anyway, that's another matter. So should probably move on to your kind of man v fat stuff, really, mate. So I have to admit, I don't really know much about your story. How did you get involved in man v fat to begin with? Like, what kind of put you onto man v fat?
So I always, as I said, have loved football my whole life and loved playing football. Played football when I was younger for sort of like under 7s, under 8s, sort of local teams. But just as I got older, sort of stopped playing. Didn't really have the confidence to go and join a team because I was never that good. So I just didn't. I just play football at lunchtimes at school. And then as I got older, started to sort of play a bit more sporadically when I sort of hit my late teens, early 20s kind of thing. And then my brother actually does Man v Fat up in Leeds. I think he does it with Wakefield. And he said to me, you should get involved with this. You'd love it. You'd really enjoy it. And he kept talking to me about it, and I was like, yeah, I'll look at it. I'll see where it is. And obviously, it took me a little while to do it. And then we were sat down, I think, on the phone one evening, and he said, right, I'm sending you the link. Sign up now. So I had a look and saw that it was at sort of where we play, and it's only up the road from me. And I thought, you know what, just do it, bite the bullet, go in for it. And I did, and that was January time. So it's nearly been a year, 9 months, I guess. And I love it. I absolutely love playing football again.
Amazing.
Oh, brilliant, mate. Well, we're glad to have you. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. And it was just up the road as well.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's very
exactly,
convenient.
yeah.
By the way, I don't know what it is. I've said this to you on several occasions when we play. How is it you're so good at headers? Every single time we play, you need to score like 2 or 3 headers. I don't understand it.
I don't know.
Mind you, I've never been a good header of the ball, so
me neither. I close my eyes and hope for the best.
I think probably can credit that to my dad. He's sort of 6'3" and was a centre back, so he sort of never shied away from a header. So I think I was sort of the same, and I was kind of the same at school with my chest. I never minded sort of putting it on my chest or my head. I just wasn't very good with my feet. But yeah, no, I do appreciate it. I like sort of trying to get my head on it. So yeah.
Yeah, you're a dream to play with, mate. When I get the opportunity to whip a ball in, I'm buzzing that it's you on the end of it.
Yeah,
There's
right.
a few, it's a few, but it's normally you that makes a real difference, because I know you're always Jet. And do you remember Ryan Broadbank? He was really good in the air as well. It's just funny old ability, and something I've never ever been any good at, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
So how's your weight loss journey been so far then, mate? You say you've been here since January, was it? How are you finding it? How are you getting on? How's the community for you, mate?
So my weight loss journey has been a little bit up and down, if I'm honest. I've always been sort of a bigger chap and struggled a little bit with sort of managing my diet and as I say, exercise. So sort of really saw this as a good opportunity. But I found when I first joined, I would sort of go a couple of weeks of losing, 0.8, 0.9 kind of thing. And then a week later put on 1.5 kilos kind of thing, just through eating silly or not playing on a Tuesday night kind of thing, and just not looking after myself really. And then it just has continued sort of along that road until kind of, I would say, the back end of last season. We talk about Steve on here quite regularly, our coach, and he sort of, I went in to weigh in one day, and there was no one else in there, and I got on the scales and weighed in, and I put weight on, and he said, "Do you want to hear a really sort of sharp truth?" And I said, "Go on then." And he said, "You're 0.1 down from when you started, and you've been coming now for this length of time." And I thought, that what am I doing? Why am I doing this kind of thing? I love playing football, but it's not doing what it's supposed to be. It's not helping me lose weight. So I had to kind of rethink why I was doing it. And I like to sort of work to short goals at work, kind of thing. I'll make myself lists and think, right, I've got to achieve this by this date kind of thing. And yeah, I sort of said, right, what have I got to lose weight for? And we've got sort of like our works end of year party coming up, and my best friend's getting married in December. So I've set myself weight loss targets. And I would say this has been the most motivated that I've felt to really lose weight. And I was down last week. I lost, I think, 1.3 last week, which I was really pleased with.
Very good.
So it's been bumpy, but I think I'm in a headspace now where I can really sort of get motivated with it and continue to lose weight.
Brilliant, mate. Jackie, you got anything to add to that? And any questions?
No, it's just I can resonate with that completely. I'm surprised Steve hasn't had that same conversation with me, if I'm completely honest. I think I've definitely gone through periods where I've up and down. It might surprise you both to know that I've never hit 10%. I've only ever hit my 5, and I've been there for a lot longer than both of you. Do you know what I mean? So it's I completely resonate with what you mean, and that motivation. And as I said earlier, there's little things that I'm finding. I get frustrated with myself, like, why is that not motivating me? Why is this not motivating me? What do I need? And the last thing, like, on my mind, is the last thing I want is like a health scare or something to come up because of my weight and my health. And I don't want it to get to that, for it to be that, if that makes sense. I don't want that to be the penny drop in. So I've got to kickstart my my mindset with it. And again, I think the important thing is, for me, is we're realizing that it's a lifestyle change, not just a fad diet or just a short period of time. It's changing everything that I do and changing my relationship with food. We had this conversation, Josh, I think probably the first pod, is that it's such a thing with relationship with food. And eat when you're sad, eat when you're happy, eat when you're hungry, eat when you're thirsty. It's just all things that just tend to not go
eat when you're bored.
well.
That's my biggest
absolutely.
one. Eat when I'm bored. And sorry, I don't mean to bring this on me, but because I work from home, I'm sitting in front of a computer for so many hours a day, but I'm not always 100% busy for every second of that time,
Yeah.
And so sometimes and because I have the luxury of doing it, I get to just swivel in my chair, turn around and look at the ceiling if I wanted to, for a few minutes. And it's those few minutes here and there, I think to myself, I just need to do something different, just need to change, like just for 5 minutes, get myself distracted or, do something. Now, some people might be look on your phone, but I've never been someone, despite how much I'm in those chats, on my phone like all the time. So I think to myself, I could eat something, maybe I'll just get up, walk downstairs, get something to eat quick kind of thing. That's what I used to do quite a bit. Now I've managed to stave that off by keeping myself busier in those 5 intervening few minutes or something. But as a thing that you said, Alex, about how like you were quite close to where you started not too long ago, for example, and Steve told you about. But say as an example, last season, for me, I think, and we mentioned this because I had an own goal about 2 weeks in the end of the season. So you can tell last season, I think I was like, I'd lost 0.1 of a kilo in the entire season.
Yeah.
Like from the very start to the very finish. That's it. That's what it was. So, and I think that in itself has started to really kick me into gear, and I hope that'll be the same for you, Alex, and and yourself, Jack. Just like, I don't know what it is. I don't really know if I'm making any sense, but
no, you are definitely.
I find that it's difficult. We're all three of us obviously in the same spot. Many people in the league are, and I think sometimes I find the community in the league and the getting up for the weight loss and the new season as we go very motivating. And I've got, like you, Alex, I've got some things that I've got coming up in the next couple of months, which I'm seeing. It sounds silly, but I'm seeing people I haven't seen in 5 years for the first time in about 2 months' time. I'm thinking to myself, if I'm down at this level, and I know I've lost weight, but I'm like, I'd love to be looking like this or down at this level because I know I would look completely different when I see them.
Yeah.
It's those small things where I'm like, yeah, I want to do that.
Yeah.
So
I can kind of, I guess, resonate with that a little bit. I remember when I was at school, I was quite I'd say I've always been sort of a chunkier lad, but I was a lot slimmer, chunky. I always had a little bit of puppy fat kind of thing. And I remember sort of when I left school, I sort of kind of moved away from the town that I went to school in. And about 5 years later, I was in a pub in the town that I grew up in, and I had done quite a lot with my life in those 5 years, whether that was going off traveling or I met my girlfriend, those kinds of things. And the first thing that one of my old school friends said was, before he asked me anything else, was, "God, haven't you got fat?" And I thought,
brutal.
You cheeky. Do you know what I mean?
It's lovely. It's lovely, charming.
And actually, it stopped me for a long time going back out to sort of places that I didn't go to or used to go to when I was younger. So it can be quite knocking. I mean, I've got a lot more comfortable with myself now and don't really care too much kind of thing going forward. But yeah, I can understand that sort of, I guess it's a fear of seeing people you haven't seen for a long time and just thinking what's going to happen.
Powerful stuff, mate. And I think what's important is we get a good balance. It's easy to get people on here that have lost loads of weight and help motivate others, but what I think a conversation like this helps with is understanding that it's not as easy as these other people can find it and have had such a brilliant journey. But what we do know is that they've put a lot of effort in, and that can motivate us at the same time, but also knowing that other people are in a similar place to us, and that it sometimes all it takes, and Steve says his most enjoyable part of it is seeing when that switch is flicked and you see somebody that's been coming regularly and then suddenly you see it change, or you do that. And I think conversations like this hopefully help not just our community, but others that listen in the Man v Fat community. Might be something that resonates with them, and it becomes something that they can focus on and use towards what they're trying to do as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Should we dive into some other football bits? Alex, that was brilliant, mate. We do really appreciate it, and your honesty is really valuable, and exactly what we want to hear and talk about on here. So fantastic work.
No, thank you for having me.
Our pleasure, mate.
Absolutely.
Are you happy to stay around for a bit of football talk?
Yeah, I can stay around. Yeah.
Top man. Right, Josh, fire away, mate.
All right. Well, the first thing I was going to say this week were just a couple of narratives when I go. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was there was a recent thing about fixture scheduling around the Christmas period and TV's influence on the fixture scheduling. I wanted to get your guys' opinion on this because we talked about the blackouts and stuff at 3:00 on a Saturday, and none of us are massive fans of that. But do you think it's going too far the other way now? Do you think, like, well, I know, Jack, you've probably got something. I can't remember what was in the news recently about around Christmas, but
yeah.
Are we finding that the fixture schedules now? I mean, we talk about how many fixtures there are, but just like when the times are spread, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing for the game?
I think the television companies have more interest in fulfilling their viewers than the inconvenience it causes people traveling to games. I think there's the one that springs to mind that I dropped in our WhatsApp group was about a Christmas Eve fixture, which I think involves Chelsea, and I can't remember exactly who else it was going to be, but playing a fixture on Christmas Eve, if you think about what that might do to travel, if there's travel issues, if there's weather like we're having now and suddenly the trains are off or there's problems on the roads, that next day becomes a bit of a difficult one, and the poor people that have got to drive the coaches that wouldn't normally be driving a coach full of football fans the other side of the country, are going to be overly impressed and doing it on a Christmas Eve. The other thing as well is I know there's a lot of people that attend football as a getaway from difficult lives that they might be living, whether it's in any circumstance, whether it's a mother, a father, a son, daughter, whatever. But you think, in my aspect, if I was to go to one of the games, be a Chelsea fan and a diehard fan, I've got 2 kids that are potentially leaving at home with my wife on Christmas Eve. Is that what we want to be doing? And it's all for the sake of fulfilling fixtures on TV and getting those viewers. They're going to capture a massive audience on a Christmas Eve. I must admit, there will be dads sat down with a beer watching. But that's all they care about.
Because it's a good thing you mentioned the fans are actually going to the game, because I have to admit, and this is someone completely who sits around and is that person who watches it on TV a lot and doesn't go a lot to the actual games. So I'm obviously like that, and for many fans, I'm spoilt for choice. Half the time, at least, half the weekend, I can see football.
Yeah.
All of Saturday afternoon and evening, all of Sunday afternoon, I can watch football on TV. So and I just wonder sometimes. Obviously, we talk about how the TV, it's in their incentive to make money off it and grab viewers' attention, etc. Their argument could be, oh yeah, but we're giving people the opportunity to watch as many of the games as possible. But I wonder to myself if it's just, again, I don't know if I'm making too much sense, but I wonder sometimes if you think it's kind of TV audience over game going audience, and because the TV audience is by far the biggest section of that kind of fans who are attending games be damned, it's just like, and eventually you'll end up not having people in stadiums. Just like I think, imagine the blackout goes. We talked about how it's hateful to have a blackout, or not hateful, you know what I mean? We don't love the fact that there's a blackout, but if there wasn't a blackout, how quickly do you think would disintegrate into match going fans not really attending?
Yeah, interesting you mentioned the blackout. So on Saturday at 3:15 is the El Clasico, and that will not be on English TV because of the 3:00 blackout. And I can't imagine, I'm just looking through some fixtures, pick one at random, Barrow against Salford. Do you think Joe Bloggs is not going to now go to Barrow versus Salford because El Clasico's on TV? The answer is clearly no. That isn't going to affect Barrow versus Salford's attendance that day. But we're in danger of contradicting ourselves slightly, because we don't like the blackout, but we also don't like them putting fixtures here, there, and everywhere. What I think and I think it will happen eventually, like the NFL have, as they have their Game Pass, don't they? You're much more up on this than I am.
Services,
You get to pick any game you want whenever you want. The problem is the Premier League could do that and earn a lot of money, but they earn more money by selling the rights of it to all of the different providers of it across, not just in the UK, but the rest of the world. The UK is a tiny percentage of what they earn in terms of their TV revenue. The rest is the rest of the world that love the Premier League for the product that it is. So we can't have it always. We can't have teams spending £100 million on players and these players earning 350, 400 grand a week. If we then just want every game to be on TV every week and you only pay a small amount for the service, or a reasonable amount for whatever game you want per game, it's a tricky one. It's something that somebody needs to solve and do it right, but the blackout, I think, doesn't help.
Yeah, okay. So I have a question for you then. I don't know how much a Sky Sports package is, hypothetically. I don't know, like, what's it, 25 quid a month or something like that? Top, I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're about right. That maybe 30, yeah, in that region.
Yeah. Okay. We'll just say for ease, then we'll say 300 quid a year. Yeah. So would you pay 300 quid a year, like if you were watching you can access all the football anytime on, say, Amazon Prime, as an example? So would you like we talk about the NFL streaming service?
Yeah.
Would you pay £25 a month to be able to watch they're all on it, let's just say they're all on at 3 p.m. on a Saturday every single week without fail?
I would, yeah.
But
I would pay more than what I'm paying at the moment.
Yeah.
You
get to pick any of them on a streaming service anytime. You can watch them back, etc., like I do on Game Pass.
Yeah.
Would you prefer that to the current way it's done?
I would, yeah. And just thinking about it, you say about it being, say, hypothetically 30 quid a month. It's not, because you can't have just a Sky Sports package. You then have to have the other packages around
the BT
it.
And so whether it's now TNT.
And not even that. So because we've got Sky at home, there's a standard package that you have to have. You can't just go, I only want the Sky packages. I believe you might be able to do that through Now TV. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, so I think you can just get sports only through Now TV. So there's already a level of streaming, for example, there.
Yeah.
And I think, okay, maybe this is the first world problems, but it's like, I think there's quite a few people now who have smart TVs or TVs that will have, say, Now TV as an app on it, or you can get like, thingy sticks, Fire Sticks and things like this.
Yeah.
For 30 quid that you can have that on. So in theory, most, again, as I say, being privileged, most people can have access to that, generally speaking, for Now TV for £20 odd a month. So you can get it separate.
Yeah. I would. Yeah, going back to your question, I absolutely would consider paying that. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I definitely would. I think realistically, if they said, you can watch any football game you want, here's a fee, I think most football fans would do it, wouldn't they?
Yeah, well, this is the thing, because you can because it can be a worldwide thing as well.
Yeah.
So you talk about the Americans, for example, watching, they don't have to get up at 9 o'clock in the morning to watch it necessarily. They could watch it 3 o'clock in the afternoon on their own time on a Sunday if they wanted
Alex,
to.
Alex, what about you as a season ticket holder? Would that stop you from having a season ticket? Would you not buy a season ticket if you could go? I don't know if iFollow is still a thing for championship teams. I'm not even taking the piss with that. Do you know what I mean? I could easily, when during COVID and when Bournemouth were back in the championship, iFollow was a thing, and you got every game that you wanted. Can you still do that with Saints, or is it only selected games you can do that with? What's the package there?
So one thing that Southampton do is, but it's only for overseas, is they have a thing called Saints Play, and you can pay a subscription fee. I think it's about £170 for the year, and you can stream all of the Southampton games, whether they're home or away. But you can't have it in the UK, and if you do, obviously you've got to have a VPN.
Yeah.
Which isn't something that I've looked at doing, because I do have a season ticket, but I like watching all football. I have a text on my phone somewhere from a few years ago where I've texted the missus and said, maybe don't come home just yet. I'm watching the Lithuania versus Ukraine under-21s in a friendly match. She hates how much I watch football, and that's a true story.
I used to do that because I had a bet on it.
Yeah. So I would still go and watch my team on a sort of a 3 o'clock home game on a Saturday, and then still pay the fee to have the rest of the football. Because if there's a game where we're away or something, I could quite happily sit there on a Saturday and watch hours upon hours of football. I even, as I say, turned around to my girlfriend and said, "Oh, I'm looking forward to tonight. I've got a 5:30 kickoff and an 8:30 kickoff. Brilliant." She wasn't very pleased, but I was.
No.
Fair enough. I was just curious you say it, because I have to admit, as I said to begin with, I'm an armchair fan on some respect. I just sit behind a screen and watch all football. You know, I love it, but even so for me, I'd love the idea of a streaming service idea, but I don't think this is at all realistic in any way. We've all had kind of as a hypothetical conversation, is it really? It's not really. I wonder if they would ever consider it. You know,
I think it's in the pipeline.
Yeah, if someone pays them enough money, if one service pays them enough money, they might. But then there's like rights of the Premier League itself, and then rights of the, you know, the Championship or whatever you're going to watch, or Champions League or various other things. So
yeah,
interesting. Sorry, we've spent a long time on that.
That's right. I've got a question for you, Josh, being a Man United fan. It's pretty straightforward. I don't spend too much time on it, but do you think Harry Maguire can salvage his career at Man United? So the reason I ask is he pulled out a man of the match performance against his old team, Sheffield United, one of his old teams, Sheffield United, at the weekend. From the highlights and from a few bits and pieces I saw, because I was watching the rugby on the other side as well, he was almost back to his kind of like colossal self, winning everything, just so dominant, and kept it really simple, which makes a big difference for a centre back that isn't completely blessed with an amazing football ability. And then also played very well for England against Italy as well. I think he was one of the standout players then as well. What do you think?
Well, it's interesting. There's been a debate about this online quite a bit recently, although it's only two most recent games. I will just say, to caveat this before I get into my argument, is that for England, I don't think he's ever been terrible for England at all.
No,
in fact, if anything, I would say he's been pretty good. And he's been in, I think he was in player of the tournament for the Euros or the World Cup, wasn't he? Not this recent World Cup, but the Euros previously. Yeah. He was still pretty.
I think he got in the World Cup team of the year as well.
Yeah,
I think. Team of the season.
So it's not like he's been bad. And for England, as much as people mock the fact that he's in the team all the time, despite the fact that he's not playing, and I can understand that argument, I still think he is, in England's team, still one of the better centre backs, and he deserves to be there. So that, I would say, England, I would almost put aside, because I don't think that's changed much, and I'm not sure it's going to change. In terms of Man United, he's in there by virtue of injury. We know that. You know, he knows that. It's a case of, but he's got to take the chances when they come. He was so prone to error before. I think we mentioned this before the pod, but the pressure, especially when he was captain, it was immense on Harry Maguire, and he was getting stick all the time, and he still gets stick all the time.
Yeah,
a couple of good performances is gonna kind of quash that for a bit until he makes another mistake. So you know, and I think that's really good for him. But I think you mentioned something to me previously, wasn't it? It's not the pressure. The pressure of the fact that he's coming in for an injury and he isn't the key man as such, you know, that he knows he's there just to cover for an injury, and as soon as that's kind of done, he'll probably be out of the team again. I think that's kind of let him relax a little.
Quite possibly,
I will say, Sheffield United, no disrespect to them, as much as they did create a couple of chances, they did play in such a manner, or they have such a manner about them, that probably suited Harry Maguire quite well.
Yeah.
The kind of lumping, balls into the box, lumping up, and that's perfect for Harry Maguire. That's literally perfect for him. And he is actually a good distributor of the ball when he's got time at the back as well, of which he had quite a lot. Yeah. So there is that. I think if you saw him playing Man City at the weekend, and especially tonight, because I don't know what the score is, so don't tell me, but tonight in the Champions League,
you're losing 17-0.
Yeah, okay, thank you. That sounds about right. Then, if he pulls out some good performances then, especially against someone like Haaland, if he has to play at the weekend, that's when I would say, yeah, I can see, because it wasn't like he had a bad first 12, 18 months at Man United. He was actually really good.
Yeah. That's a
And
good
then
point.
it just kind of dropped off a cliff. It's not like he's a bad player.
It's one
just
that we need to see what happens next. Like you say,
So
pick up this
I
conversation next week and see how he
Yeah.
gets on against Haaland. Yeah.
I will just, I know it's a long story short, but to answer your
No,
question,
it's cool.
yes, I do actually see, as I am as a fan, I'm probably one of the very few, but I would say, yes, I do see him have a future in Man United. I don't always think it's going to be in the first team, but considering how injury prone Varane is and seemingly how Martinez is at the moment, if he can get a good run of games and pick up his form, I can't see why he can't challenge to be playing ahead of them.
Yeah.
I don't think either of them have set the world alight. They've been good and they had a really good season last year, but I don't think either of them have been so brilliant that Harry Maguire can't get back in and stay there.
Yeah.
I just think the fan appetite for him being there is so low that he probably has to move. Regardless.
So fair point. One of the other topics I wanted to pick up on is Spurs and Big Ange. So listening to TalkSport, as I spoke to you before we started the pod, I'd unfortunately spent an hour and 25 longer than I wanted to on the M25 today. So I heard an awful lot of the Spurs talk over the last couple of days, which is absolutely fine. I've got no bones to pick with it. They're where they are, and they deserve to be where they are after 9
You say
games.
that through gritted teeth, yeah.
Do you know what? I kind of do, but what this is actually perfectly timed, because one thing there was a lot of players within the Spurs team and a couple of managers which were really, really easy to dislike, which made the team easy to dislike, which made everything a lot easier as an Arsenal fan to dislike. But I like Ange, I like Maddison, I love Son. I think he's brilliant, and I think he's a breath of fresh air for the team, and the way that his demeanour and attitude and his ability and all of those good things. It's really difficult to dislike them. It's really difficult to begrudge where they are. I think I want to, and the Gooner in me, the Arsenal fan in me, really doesn't want to admit anything. But they are where they deserve to be at the moment. Do I see it staying? I don't. And without being too pessimistic on their behalf, I think there's a big cliff to fall off relatively soon when the fixtures get tougher. They've played a lot of teams, a bit of a backhanded compliment now, I'm digging into it, but they've played a lot of teams like Bournemouth in the bottom half or even like the bottom quarter of the league that you'd expect them to beat. They got the result against Liverpool when they shouldn't have, because we all know the reasons why. And I just think that there's some trickier tests to come, but ride the wave while you still can. And we certainly did last season. And I think they deserve to be where they are. And I really like Ange. I think he was asked last night by Sam Matterface on TalkSport, can Spurs win the league? And he said, unless there's anything in the rule books that says that Tottenham can't win the league, then yeah. And what I love about that is he's got the ability to kind of brush away that pressure and brush away that expectation with something smart and something quick-witted back. And when he does get snappy, what I love is he just chucks like the proper Aussie little like mate on the end of it. He's like, "What? I don't know what you're talking about, mate." And you kind of go, "Oh, I do like him. I do like him." And the record, that was the other thing I wanted to talk about. So as of last night, he has had the best start for a manager joining the Premier League ever.
Yeah.
So points wise, and that is hugely impressive and completely down to, I would say, him. It can't be much else. He's obviously been involved with signing players like Van der Ven and making Maddison, or signing Maddison and making Maddison captain, and the involvement of letting Kane go. And it's just an interesting dynamic, and I think fair play to him.
Yeah. What do you think, Alex? Because I love Big Ange, and as a complete neutral of it, I like watching him in press. I don't usually watch press conferences, but I like his press conferences. That's the kind of level I like him, and I like watching good football, and Spurs playing well at the moment. So
Yeah, so half my family, my stepdad's family, are actually Celtic fans. So I followed Ange sort of as a Celtic supporter myself. So I loved him before he came to Spurs, but I worried that maybe he couldn't quite do it. He did very well in the SPL. I know there's not a lot of competition outside of Rangers, but they played really good football. And he's come in, and I just think, as you guys have mentioned, he's such a likable character, and he plays really entertaining football. And he's just arguably was a bit of a left field sort of appointment, I think. And I know Spurs fans that were not happy to get him. They were not looking forward to it, and they thought just he'll be gone. But they've all fallen in love with him, and yeah, I think he's quality.
Yeah, fair enough. Speaking of quality managers, Eddie Howe, man, and Newcastle.
Wow.
I mean, I know there was some weird talk. We were talking a few weeks ago, weren't there, about how, oh yeah, is he under pressure? Bollocks, was he? It's just like made me laugh, just the media narrative around him. But now, when do you think people are going to wake up and realize how good he is as a manager, or is he actually that good? People are just going to be, because when will he be considered a elite manager, if at all? Because I've seen stuff online where there people consistently, and I know it's a joke, but people consistently banter Newcastle and talk about how in 2 years' time or in a year's time he'll be moved on because they'll get someone who's elite in, like your Mourinho's and whoever it is you're talking about, people they shouldn't have, but that kind of thing, to take them to the title or to the next level beyond that. And I just think that's so okay. I'm biased, being the ex-Bournemouth man. I just think that's so disrespectful to Eddie Howe and his ability. I don't see why he couldn't take them there.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think he's not far off that. I think, yeah, they need to win something. I think the investment that Saudi fund, or however it's put together, are going to I can't get my words out, are going to expect a return on that investment in terms of a trophy. But Champions League, for now, that win against PSG would have done a great deal of positive for the confidence of the team, and as you can see with the results, when they went and go and slapped Sheffield United, was it 8-0, wasn't it? And then 4-0 again at the weekend against Palace, that aren't a pushover either. He's really starting to heat up, and he's improved his defensive coaching, surely, because at the time that was his biggest critics and biggest problem at Bournemouth, is that we weren't ever very good at defending. We always just went for the we'll score one more than you mindset. Yeah. And he's now tightened up the defence and also has a firing attack with the likes of, you can think Harvey Barnes is out injured. You've got to think about Gordon, that's come in and done well. Callum Wilson's doing what Callum Wilson does. Isak, who else they got? Murphy scoring goals, Trippier getting involved with the assists. You've got Almiron scoring. And you've got players like Joe Linton that's not really firing at the moment. I think they're a great team, and he's a great coach, and they'll keep doing well, I'm sure.
Yeah, I just hope for his sake that they actually win something and people start to see him as good as he is. One thing I did notice about the trajectory of their players in terms of who they get in. So not only then it took a little bit of time for him to get, not much time for the players currently at Newcastle when he took over to improve them quite quickly, but it took a month or two. And then every new player he's got in, they've slowly bedded them in. And then after about 2 or 3 months, they've started completely firing. Like Gordon's a prime example, came in the January window, and now this season he's been brilliant. I'm sure it'll be the same Harvey Barnes in the back end of the season when he's fit, and he'll be brilliant. And it's just, that seems to be the same trajectory for all these players. It takes them a little bit and then they start firing, and I think that's credit to Eddie Howe. But
yeah,
absolutely. Who am I to judge? So
is there anything else we want to cover? I'm conscious that we're running close to a deadline that both me and Alex have to get to football, but also we've obviously spoke for a fair amount of time and covered a lot of subjects. Is there anything that
if we've got a couple of minutes, I wouldn't mind just coming back to some fantasy football. It was a request of the community. because I haven't covered it for
Far
2
away.
weeks. Although I'm sure by now I've spoken quite a lot in this pod. So the only thing I was going to say about fantasy, looking ahead, is this week's been quite an interesting one. There's been a few big scorers. Obviously Son and Maddison from Spurs. Salah continues just to knock them in for fun. And that's the whole thing about having a penalty taker as well, is that even if he's not doing anything amazing, a penalty can suddenly sway it. So the only thing I would say on fantasy football ahead is that looking ahead at what kind of teams that you might want to target and what kind of players for transfers. So the teams to look at, in my opinion, are Aston Villa, who have been obviously very good, and they've still got some very good fixtures for coming up. So Ollie Watkins, of course, Matty Cash, Diaby. I've seen quite a lot of people get Douglas Luiz in, but he's not my first choice on that one, just because he's cheap. But if you have the money, I would get one of the 3 others, or all 3 of them if you can. Liverpool, obviously Salah. Trent, I would kind of not avoid Luis Diaz and Darwin Núñez, but it's mainly because if you get any of them in, you have to understand that they are minutes risks. And so while that they can score, and in the 20 minutes they play one week, it's not always going to happen that way. The other one I was looking at is Tsimikas, who's in for Andrew Robertson, who's out for quite a while now.
Yeah.
And the reason being I say him is because he's quite a cheap defender for Liverpool, so 4.5 million, and he gets forward quite a lot on that left-hand side. So having a attacking fullback in the Liverpool team is not a bad thing for that money. So he's one I would look at straight away. He's probably going to be my transfer in this week if I make one, to get Tsimikas in. So
he'll be cheap as well, won't he?
Yeah, 4.5 million as a defender, so cheaper than your Dan Burns and your Doggies and Gabriel from Arsenal and things like this. So yeah, he's one to look at for. The other teams I would look at, so West Ham. So Jared Bowen is by far the best option, but James Ward-Prowse isn't too bad either. Arsenal, now that their fixtures are starting to turn, you'll have to remind me, but I think they've got a good one this week, but then a poor one next week. Is that correct? And then after that, it's really good.
I think we've got Sheffield United.
Yeah. So Saka is my number one, but then Martinelli, and then if as defender, can't believe I'm saying this after the first 3 weeks, but Gabriel is who I would have in defence.
Yeah.
Mainly because he dropped in price, so he's 4.7 million or something from where he started. So, and then a couple of others just to look at: Mark Gay from Crystal Palace, and maybe Joachim Andersen, and then Cole Palmer from Chelsea. Now, I wouldn't ordinarily pick a Chelsea player because I've got some terrible fixtures to come, but it's just because he's on penalties in that Chelsea team, and he's really cheap as a midfielder, like 4.9 million or something. So
interesting.
If you're trying to fit players in the midfield, he might be someone to put in there as a rotation.
Yeah.
That's it for my quick fantasy run through.
Yeah, there's definitely a few in there that's worth my consideration. I'm falling further and further away and just not getting the rubber green, so I've got to make some changes. Just seen that Arsenal have scored. I read that it was an awful first half, but Martinelli has got a goal, which is really important. Sorry about that. I'm not going to mention anything about United. Don't worry, I haven't even looked.
No worries. I'm going to go away
truth.
and watch it in a minute. So thanks, Alex, for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, cheers, Alex.
No, thank you very much for having me. It's been really good fun.
Oh, brilliant. I can't thank you enough. Thanks again for both of you. I'll catch you again soon.
Yeah, we're going to go play football in a pond now, I think.
Yes, well, I wish I was, but I missed out this week. So.
All right, cheers for your time. Thanks for listening, guys, and you'll hear us again soon.
Take care.
Cheers, bye-bye.